Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. It's Friday. You know what that means.
Front Office Friday! Less than 2 weeks to the trade deadline edition.
Less than 2 weeks to the trade deadline edition. Keith, that was more of a muted intro there.
Tired.
I wonder why. Why are you so tired?
I'm tired. It's been 2 late nights in a row, man. Two late nights in a row. I wore the only purple and yellow item I own in honor of your Lakers beating the Celtics.
I appreciate that. And I also appreciate that you were with us on the live show. Not only were you with me live for the play-by-play last night of Lakers Celtics, but you stuck around for the post-game show as well. You were hanging in there, and you were not like me. You were an early riser, so that was impressive.
I slept in today till 6:15.
Oh my God. Are you serious? You got up at 6:15? We were doing the show till what, almost 2?
Yeah, but it's okay. I'm going to take a pretty good nap about as soon as we finish off.
Okay.
So it'll be good.
Well, we do have like a million things going on around the NBA right now. Friday of course. Morning. Yeah, it's been a busy morning. I woke up and went, oh my gosh, what is happening? But when we'll get into all the different topics and everything, but we'll also be taking your questions and your comments. So those of you who are joining us live, fire off your questions, your thoughts in the chat. And we'll get to them. Obviously, a lot of people in here already hanging out. So, Keith, do we want to just start since we've got so many different things to get into? Let's just start here.
I want to see me get my joy back from playing basketball, and wherever that may be.
Can you get your joy back here on the court?
Probably not.
Oh, the Butler bomb. More on the Jimmy Butler saga. A number of teams looking to potentially trade for Jimmy Butler, but so far the Miami Heat, according to Brian Windhorst, not getting offers that they like. They're looking for contracts that expire by 2026. They are also looking for draft capital, young players, things of that nature. And now suddenly there's these little rumblings from Jake Fisher that, maybe we could see Phoenix looking at Zach LaVine. What the hell is going on, Keith?
Well, and also within that, Zach LaVine is now like, I'm good. I'll just stay in Chicago.
Yeah.
Which is like weird in itself because they were like a year into him wanting a trade. So I don't really know what to make of all that. Yeah, I think with the Jimmy Butler situation, I talked to a couple teams, more than a couple, probably about 15, 20 teams throughout the course of this week. And the main theme was, we are basically in a place where the Butler situation is kind of holding things up a little bit. One team told me directly, we have a deal lined up that we're ready to make, but the other team is holding because they may be involved in the Butler trade. And they might get the salary that they have to move and those kind of things. So you get in a spot there where it really becomes until that gets done, we're probably going to see things hold up. Now, I'll also be clear. Everybody I talked to is like, that'll last for about one more week. And then it's, all right, we got to move on. We got to do our own business. Like, we can't wait on this any longer. So we'll see. Mark Spears was the latest to report. Jimmy Butler is happy to go anywhere, play for any team except Miami or Memphis. The Memphis thing continues to baffle me. I got to believe he knows they're not going to pay him. That's got to be where that's coming from. So we'll see. I really am curious to see how that kind of plays out there in the end. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of in this holding pattern right now. What did Sham say? There've been more productive trade talks or something like that. So I don't really know what that means. But yeah, we're still in a very complicated spot here.
So this was what Windhorst said as well. Said the Grizzlies are still lurking in Butler trade talks and have been in contact with the Heat during the process. Rival league executives believe Memphis is trying to combine a talent influx with offloading future salary so that it can facilitate a contract extension for Jaren Jackson Jr. as early as this summer. So that pretty much speaks to what you're saying right there, Keith. Butler, meanwhile, makes it known he could opt out of his contract this summer, seek free agency. Some are theorizing that if the Grizzlies can acquire him for a playoff run and also free cap space this summer, that's where their interest might lie. So essentially, Memphis would be looking at Jimmy as an expiring contract and saying, hey, we could do the Kawhi Leonard here with Toronto with him.
Sure.
We can bring him in. If we convince him to stay, great. If not, we free up future flexibility. And that's maybe why Jimmy is saying anywhere but Memphis, because he knows Memphis just wants him to expire and then walk away somewhere else. And there's no place for him to go this summer in free agency because the Nets and the Wizards are the teams with cap space and they don't want him. So that right there may be the answer to why Jimmy Butler doesn't want Memphis, because he knows he's hitting the free agent market instead of getting the big extension he wants from that club.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a couple different places we've talked about a little bit. This could play out similar-ish to Paul George, where one of the thoughts was, well, why didn't they trade him last year when it was clear, like, we're probably not going to get to the extension number he wants to. But the Clippers used his contract simply expiring to then really reshape their entire roster around Kawhi Leonard. They went out and had a really nice offseason and were able to sign a whole bunch of guys that they wouldn't have been able to sign otherwise. And then there is a spot where they are the Clippers, they might get out of the tax entirely. Matter of fact, I think they will. Because they're so close, they might as well. And then that starts to, if you can get out and stay out for a couple of years, you reset those repeater clocks and all the other things for yourself on the tax. So why not go in that direction? But yeah, Memphis, I mean, wouldn't shock me if Memphis said, hey, let's make a play here. I mean, they acquired Andre Iguodala at one point when he was like, I'm not going to play for you. And then ultimately didn't. And they ended up trading him. It's kind of funny, to Miami. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Memphis just says, you know what, we're going to do it anyway, and our expectation is you'll come in and play hard. But that would be my worry. You don't want to just turn the Heat situation into your situation.
Sure.
Like, be careful.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you have a sense that Jimmy Butler is going to show up and be mad that the Grizzlies traded for him, and if he knows the Grizzlies aren't interested in giving him his next contract, he probably would be mad. And then you've got a whole other problem. And that's why Jimmy, I think, is kind of doing the things he's doing, putting it out there that he doesn't want to be in Memphis and all that kind of stuff, trying to dissuade them from trading for him. So interesting wrinkle here. Again, if they felt like Jimmy was going to show up and play hard, though, I mean, it might make some sense to still. But again, I don't know if they want to deal with this in Memphis. That's a whole other level. There's a reason why Heat players are reportedly like, just get him off this team, please.
Yeah. It's very funny because, right, I think very publicly they've basically been like, hey, we love Jimmy, but like we're all moving on, and that's where, you kind of get to. Yeah. And if you're Memphis, you've already gone through a lot in the last year.
Yeah.
Like, let's just maybe let this thing play out, because they're not far off. Like, they could be the team where an unexpected injury boosts them, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, the Grizzlies made a West Finals or NBA Finals run that we didn't necessarily see coming, but because they're not that far off that, they're very, very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Here's a question coming in from Leon. Says, is there more urgency for Miami to trade away more pieces since their draft pick is top 15 protected? Otherwise, it goes to our favorite team. My understanding is that the Heat actually want to surrender the draft pick this year because otherwise it becomes unprotected in future years.
It becomes unprotected next year, and then
plus another one does.
Yeah, then they owe an unprotected pick to the Hornets from the Terry Rozier Kyle Lowry trade, where that would be protected in the next year, and that gets potentially really messy because once you start talking a couple years out, you don't really know what you'll be at that point, and that could be a juicy pick there. So yeah, I think they'd rather make the playoffs this year, convey the pick, then they at least have a lottery protected pick that could go to the Hornets, and work it that way versus getting stuck with, man, now we got to send out 2 unprotected picks in a 3-year window.
And when you look at the standings in the Eastern Conference, I'll put them up in just a second here. It's like this is a very doable thing to make a push. I'm not saying make a push like they're going to make a deep playoff run or anything. Miami is, but You look at the East, the 76ers, maybe they're going to be trying to, but they've lost their last 7. I mean, it would be difficult for Miami to lose enough games, I think, to truly like bottom out and do everything they need to do to make sure that they hang on to that pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be hard. I made this point. There was a very panicked Orlando Magic fan in my mentions last night because they got absolutely drilled at home by the Trailblazers. And he's like, I think we're going to be lucky to make the play-in tournament. And I was like, whoa, let's breathe for a second here, because who's trying to make the last spot in the play-in tournament in the East? That we can eliminate the Wizards, Raptors, Hornets, and Nets. 3 of those, well, really all 4 of those teams are playing very hard. The Wizards are just god awful. I mean, we're starting to.
They really are.
I mean, look at their scoring differential. Negative 14.5. That's what they lose by on average.
That's average. Yeah, they're getting blown out on average
every night. So you got to be, but they're playing hard, but they stink. The Raptors playing hard. They've won a couple games. Their fans are very funny because like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing this? Same with Trailblazers fans have said the same thing in the West. But those 4 teams aren't trying to win. We don't really know what's going on with Philly. Philly may just be like, I could see Philly very quickly here punting and saying, let's try to keep our top 6 pick and go.
Mm-hmm.
And then we don't know what's going on with the Bulls. Now Levine says he wants to stay, but there's still rumors of, hey, they'll still trade him if they get the right offer. Still looking to move Vooch. Kobe White's been out there. Patrick Williams is very available. And so I think when you hit in that spot of, if I'm the Magic, the Hawks, the Heat, the Pistons, I think the Pacers have played themselves out of that. You're all going to make the play-in tournament at the least because there's nobody else trying that hard to catch you.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, that's sort of the safety net in the Eastern Conference right now for these teams. Now, again, it can be a negative for the teams that are trying, like if you're the 76ers and suddenly you say, okay, we're really going to try to tank. Like they're doing a great job already, lost 7 in a row, but how low can you really go when you've got everyone around you losing games as well? And then that also keeps these other teams that are right now in the playoff mix afloat, which then, I mean, brings us all the way back to Chicago. And can Chicago fall far enough in the East to keep their pick? I don't know. Like that's a tricky spot too.
Yeah, these pick protections are really, really going to factor in for some of these teams on where they're trying to get to. Because remember, it's not good enough if you're the Bulls to get to 10, if you're the Sixers to get to 6, because then only one team needs to jump from below you ahead of you. And all of a sudden now you conveyed your pick. So you tanked, had a terrible season, and still conveyed your pick. That's stuff that, gets people fired. Fans lose their minds over. That's when it gets really, really rough. So it's going to be, it's just going to be, somebody's going to stumble into that 10th spot. What people have been throwing out is that team just going to tank that play-in game. Be like, look, we don't want to win this. Like, we want to be in the lottery. There's going to be between the bottom of the East and the bottom of the West, even if some of those teams are, again, they're playing okay right now, there's going to be some disgusting basketball happening post-trade deadline, with those teams, because they're all, now what's happening is no one's catching Washington. They're going in with, top 3 lottery odds, top spot, pre-lottery. But there's a bunch of teams that it's just going to be the pillow fight to the bottom to, see how you get there.
Keith, when you said there's going to be some disgusting basketball post-lottery or post-trade deadline, is it bad that the first thing I thought of was the All-Star game?
We'll see.
We'll see what happens. Hopefully it's not.
Gives us. I'm hopeful, but we'll see.
All right. This is kind of piggybacking on what we're talking about here. Jermaine says, Keith, I saw your tweet earlier about an assistant GM saying they got a trade ready to go, but waiting for the Jimmy trade to happen. Can you give any more info on this? I know you talked a little bit about it kind of off the top here, but is there any other detail you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, it's just, it's a team that could be involved if the Butler trade ends up being 3, 4, or 5 teams. They're a team that's kind of like circling that. Which it could be 4 or 5 teams, and that includes like a grouping of like, I've heard like 10 or 12 teams mentioned as part of that, just because you're talking a lot of big salaries, moving around a lot of teams, and they are, this team's just involved, and one of the players that they could move could be involved in that trade instead, and that's why there's a little bit of a hold on that.
Do you? Well, first of all, do you know what the trade is?
Yeah, I do, but I'm not going to say.
No. I know you're not. Because I was just curious if they were giving you that detail or whatever. But but
at least I have the general framework,
the general gist of it. Do you? I mean, Miami pushing back right now, saying they're not getting what they want. Do you still think he gets moved, Jimmy?
I do. Yeah, maybe I'm completely off on this one. Maybe it plays out like Damian Lillard and it takes a lot longer than we thought it would be. But I still think he gets moved here, and I still think it'll be Phoenix. I think they will find somewhere that Bradley Beal is okay going to, and they'll find a framework that works, and Jimmy Butler will be with the Suns. I'm going to trust the history of. I know someone will counter with the examples of guys who didn't get where they wanted to go, but then I'll counter with 50 places where they did. And, and I think that's how it'll play out. We'll see.
Keith, you know what it's going to happen. So I'm taking my wife out to dinner tonight. That's when it's going to happen. That's when it's going to happen.
Or at 3 a.m, like that.
Or at 3 a.m. I would rather go 3 a.m. I know you would not, but I would rather do the 3 a.m. show. Victor Oladipo to the Lakers on a minimum contract, cut Christian Wood. Keith, I'm seeing. So I am just catching up on the day's news. I'm seeing some stuff about Oladipo.
Thing is. I'm gonna.
Is something going on
here? Yeah, I don't know, because I don't think Victor Oladipo is anywhere interested in playing again. I haven't heard anything about that. Let's see.
Okay, so I thought I had just missed it in all the early morning hubbub here, but I don't know what that is all about.
Anything.
I mean, I was hearing about why the Lakers needed to sign Hassan Whiteside like years after he had stopped playing. So you never know.
Oh, okay. Can Victor Oladipo make? There's an article on Bleacher Report. He hasn't played 643 days since his last game.
That's always a tough ask.
I'm not gonna read this whole thing. I don't know. I would say probably not.
Right.
I mean, that's we're getting close to 3 years. Like, that's too much.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
All right. Man with the movie camera said, just wanted to send some positive vibes. You guys are two of my go-to voices in NBA media. Genuine thanks for everything you do. Well, thank you. We really do. We appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. We, this time of year, obviously it's extremely busy, but we love doing this. We love doing what we do. And Keith, let's be like a week from now, we're really going to be in like, I can't run to the grocery store kind of like I can't leave the house because anything can happen at any time. And that's part of what you love about this league is like you get these out of nowhere, whoa, I can't believe that just happened type moves. And it is so much fun.
Yeah, I just was telling my bosses at Spot Track that like I'm a week from like, all right, chaining myself to my desk because it just, I'm gonna fear every time I get ready to move. It's once you're within that week of the trade deadline, once you're in that window, that's just where it gets really, really tight there. So I appreciate that too. I'll shout out to got a number of nice messages from Lakers fans last night. We had a lot of fun. I mean, it was, not so much fun the way the game played out, but we had fun on, both the live play-by-play and the, post-game. Because it was a blowout, I think we got to kind of do what you do during a blowout and talk about some different stuff and get into some things. But yeah, and, but one of the things that, resonated with people was I tried to tell people like, hey, I am, you have to enjoy this stuff. Like if you can't enjoy a blowout win over your rival, you're just like, come on now. Like, what are we doing here? So yeah.
All right, let's that was a lot of fun on last night's show. We definitely enjoyed that. And it was nice to have you there. I know it wasn't the close competitive game that we were hoping for. I'll tell you what though, Keith, over in Lakerland, we needed something like that for sure. All right, let's go here. JJ Castillo said, name one team in the East and West that have been the most surprising and disappointing this season. Most surprising in the East and West. Well, I mean, Is it the Cavs being at the top of the East? Is that that's, I think, in and of itself, a surprise if we look at the Eastern Conference. But other than that, I'd say the Detroit Pistons
Yeah.
sitting in the 6th seed right now.
Yeah, those are the two for me. I mean, Cavs have been so good, so dominant, even if they've stumbled a bit here lately. Yeah, and then the Pistons. I mean, I'm going to go with the Pistons just because if you had told me one of these two things is going to happen, I'm like, all right, the Cavs put it all together. The Pistons being above 500 and, going into the trade deadline, I never would have believed that's where we're going to be.
And then when you look at the Philadelphia 76ers, they've got to be the most disappointing.
Yeah, easy. That's the easy choice there too. Yeah, it's just been, just been a disaster, and I go back to, and I actually went, and I should have saved the link to the shows, but when it finalized that Paul George was going there, we were like, great fit in theory, and we talked about it where our real worry was if he's not healthy, how is this going to work? Because you now have tied your basically whole future to, or near-term future, because it's only 4 years, but Embiid and George, and their track records both stinks. So that's what we were worried about there. If they couldn't get healthy, that was it. So in the West, my positive surprise, Houston. I thought Houston would be fighting for a spot in the play-in tournament, being the second best team in the conference so far. Really, really fun. Clippers are a really pleasant surprise for me too. I thought they were going to be out of the playoffs. I just kind of thought they'd be in a weird place with this kind of transitional roster, and then disappointing. I'll be kind of on. It's probably Minnesota for me. I don't know. I just thought they'd be better. They're just kind of they're okay. I thought they'd be better than what they are.
New Orleans, although that's all, similar to Philly though, injury related, but look at New Orleans. They've won the last 4.
Yeah. Which again, another fan base where they're like, what are we doing?
Why are we winning games now? Right.
Yeah,
now that we're out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, why? So, and that's the thing. Now you've got all these teams that are sitting around 10 wins, and it's only the top 4, flattened odds for the top 3. And then the 4th pick is also decided by the lottery. So Washington's going to be there. All these other teams that are kind of, they're just winning too many games right now.
All right, let's go.
Phoenix too. Disappointing.
Phoenix
be better than a game over 500.
For sure. Miguel said, is there a player not in the league that you guys just won't give up on and just needs another shot? For me, it's Jahlil Okafor. That's a interesting one. I had high hopes that Okafor was somehow going to buck the trend of modern NBA bigs as a kind of a throwback player, and he was going to find success. And for a little while there, he was pretty good. Playable and stuff with Philly. I don't know. Is there? For me, I guess a guy that I would look at would still be Lonnie Walker, and I know he's probably going to wind up back in the league in the next month or so, maybe.
We'll see.
We'll see.
He's really not played that great in the EuroLeague games. He's played really well in the domestic games in Lithuania, but in EuroLeague, he just hasn't shot it well. So,
okay.
But, yeah.
Who's your guy, though, that you just don't want to give up on?
Man, my 2 guys for a year now, they're too old for this now, but forever were Thomas Robinson and Derek Williams. And I still think Derek Williams it was the wrong time for him. I think had Derek Williams come in the NBA now, teams were like, okay, he's a stretch 4. That's what he is, and we'll play him as such. And instead it was like, nah, man, you're too small. You gotta be a 3 or even a 2, and it just gets super messy. Guy who's still playing, Jabari Parker.
Oh, good one.
Playing really well too in Europe, but I don't think we're ever going to see him in the league again. He's very happy overseas. He makes good money. I think the schedule fits better for him. They only generally play twice a week over in Europe, so I think that just works better for him with his knees. But man, I like Jabari Parker. The way he came back from the first torn ACL, I was like, this guy's going to do it. We're going to see this guy blossom into being, really what we thought he would be. And then that second one just really crushed him. But yeah, I'll continue to believe in him for a while.
All right, let's go here. Keith, what do you think about Beal to Chicago? I don't know why Chicago would want Beal. Levine to Milwaukee, Portis and Middleton, who are in trade rumors now that they're available, to Miami, Butler to Phoenix, and then Connaughton to a team like Detroit. So just take all the major pieces and just flip them all around to all these different teams. Picks going from Miami, Detroit, Chicago, from Phoenix and Milwaukee. Is that what it is? Just all these teams look at each other and go, let's just swap them all.
I mean, I don't want to be a jerk, but this is a lot like, let's shuffle some deck chairs around on the Titanic here and, make it look nicer as we sink into the ocean. I don't know. That's just so big. But I'm not going to say this exact structure, but this is like what the Butler trade to Phoenix could play out like, because you're just going to have a lot of big moving salaries that have to be shifted all over the place. And, Detroit is definitely circling there as, hey, we're going to go. But I can tell you, I'm not the first one to say this because this has been pretty widely reported. I have heard that the Pistons are not just collecting salary. Like they are very much like, we want players who can help. Like they are now committed to we're trying to do this. Also, too, I think the Pistons really want to get rid of that protected pick that they owe. It now goes to Minnesota. It was with the Knicks, but it went to Minnesota in the Towns trade. I think they want free of that obligation. That thing's been hanging out there for years, and they want to get out of that. So Connaughton could happen because I think there's a world where Connaughton could help them. But yeah.
And if we're really looking at this, I mean, I just don't. Why would Chicago want to rid themselves of Zach LaVine's contract just to get Bradley Beal's worst contract?
Mentioned the Suns and LaVine. I mean,
I just have to imagine Beal would go somewhere else, though. Like
I don't know, the Bulls do weird things.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, Beal's contract is way worse than LaVine.
Yeah,
I think we talked about this yesterday. Like not even close. I just had this made me laugh. I just got here and missed everything. Can you sum up everything I missed? No.
Trades. That's everything.
Yeah. Jimmy Butler's still on the Heat.
Oh man. Let's see. Kevin said Rui JHS and 2 seconds for Vucevic. I think right now Chicago's asking for first, but I wouldn't be willing to give first either, though. Yeah. If I'm another team, so that'll be interesting.
First,
maybe, and even then,
well, we talked about this last night. If you're acquiring Vooch as sorry, we're getting notifications here, but it's if you're acquiring Vooch, you're acquiring Vooch to be your starting center, and I don't know that you're fixing a whole lot there because I think you're creating two defensive issues. I think you're creating an issue with Vooch, and I'm going to continue to beat the drum. I don't think LeBron's a 3, so I would rather get a guy who can play the 5 next to AD, but you don't necessarily have to start.
Sure. Yeah, and that's what we've talked about. Just having the flexibility to go with the 2 big lineup for them.
Hey, we got a Celtics one.
Grindhard said, "I wish Iverson had played for the Lakers." Iverson doesn't get enough love. He was incredible.
Yeah, especially his size too, and the beating he took.
Insane.
Like when you go back and watch, like it's crazy he had as long of a career as he did. Because he was always getting beat up.
Yeah, right. I mean, and that the opposing defense has just focused everything on it because that was their offense was give the ball. It was give the ball to Will, right? But it was Allen Iverson. Any chance the Celtics get Kamara? What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's like a guy Trailblazers aren't going to trade.
Yeah,
like that would be crazy. Like they're, I mean, now it's funny because then he let's go to his next message because he did his proposed trade. I mean, yeah, you start talking about throwing first rounders, like, well, then, yeah, I mean, that's probably might go a little bit different, but yeah, that's not the guy you trade if you're Portland. You're going to hang on to a guy like that and then go.
Arthur says Jabari Parker used to strike fear into us in Ohio playing for the Bucks. I'm sad to hear he's probably not coming back to the States. LA could use him. I mean, if Jabari Parker ever became what we thought he was going to be when he was coming out of the draft, I mean, a lot of teams could use him. It just the injuries and everything else just kind of piled up for him. But you know what? For some guys too, like they forge these really good careers over in Europe, and if they're happy there, like sometimes that matters a lot too. And so you're excited to see guys be successful in another setting if that's really the best thing for him and for him physically too, playing a little bit less. Maybe that prolongs his career a bit over there.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna go to a throwback name because he's constantly mentioned as somebody who maybe will make another run at the NBA. But Bryce Cotton, I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah.
He was a big time player in college at Providence. He has made this incredible career for himself in Australia. Like I'm guessing there's some form of Australian Basketball Hall of Fame, and if there is, he's definitely going to be in it. Like he has been incredible there for years now. And he always gets mentioned as like, hey, he could maybe come back to, the NBA and really make a run. But I think he's looking at be like, I could go probably be a decent backup point guard in the NBA. But here I start, I'm a, hero on it. Some of these teams, like, why would I move? Like, I think that is where to your point, when guys find a place where they're comfortable, like, yeah, you're making good money. You're getting to play pretty good basketball now. This is not back in like the 90s and early 2000s. There was such a drastic difference in the level of basketball that it's like you're not even playing good ball. So then it just becomes weird. So yeah, that part I'm not, that's rough. And like look at Sasha Vezenkov. Like he went home, like back to Europe, but like he gave up $6 million, $7 million just to go back to Europe. Like gave it all back. Like was just like that's how unhappy he was. So it's a two-way street with that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. All right. Oblivion Dynasty says, hey, Trev, thoughts on a Lakers trade for Kessler and Sexton? Would that be enough to contend? And what would you be willing to give up for that trade? Keith, you know what? You and I have both talked about being fans of Colin Sexton and what he provides. Now. Yeah, for a lot. I mean, we back to his Cavs days. We were talking about how people weren't paying enough attention to his efficiency. And that's, it's nice to be able to say that because that tells you that we've been doing this show for a little while now. Like we've got some years behind us here. But that in terms of the fit, I do worry about like an Austin Reeves, Colin Sexton pairing and defensively what that would potentially mean. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's a talent upgrade, but let's say you're the Lakers and you go all in. We're talking about your draft picks and all that kind of stuff. And you get Kessler and Sexton. Is that enough for them? I still worry about defensively the backcourt, if that's enough to really put them over the top.
Yeah, that's my issue with that one. I like Kessler far more. Again, we talked about this last night because I like Kessler as he helps now and he helps tomorrow, right? Because he can be, when you're ready to move AD to the 4 full time, he can be your starting 5 and just run with that. So yeah, we'll see.
All right, let's go. I think if OKC goes and gets Pirtle from the Raptors, that would make them the favorites. I don't know what the Raptors' appetite for trading Pirtle is. We've heard they're a little bit reluctant to do it. Yeah, so he's been really good. I think if he is a guy that is available, teams should certainly be interested. And in fact, of the 20 million range centers like Clint Capella, Nikola Vucevic, I think you could argue that Pirtle should be at the top. Just because he's a bit younger than Vucevic is. So he's a really good player that I like a lot. I just don't know that the Raptors are that incentivized to move on from him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what happens there too from the OKC side, why, right? You have Hartenstein and he'll be back pretty soon. You have Holmgren, he's coming back soonish. Like I don't know. It's just not where I would go. That's, and if you're OKC, it's not that you have limited trade assets because I'm going to steal don't hear what I'm not saying. They have, plenty of draft picks they can trade, but they are limited in, you can only take so much more salary into this group because you're going to start getting expensive here in the next, couple of seasons. We got one more year of this, and then you're going to start to get expensive. And that's when it's like, how much do you invest in the center position? That's like, you're talking between Pirtle and Hardenstein. That's $50 million worth of centers. And that's before you even factor in Holmgren's going to play a lot at the 5 too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot of money to throw at the center spot. Kevin says, you could say LeBron can't guard threes, but what three can guard LeBron? It goes both ways. What team can put a big lineup to guard LeBron, AD, and Vooch?
You switch everything, and you just leave a small on whichever one's standing up by the arc, because they can't all play around the paint.
So, and I think that, again, just the overall point, and I'll talk more in depth about this on Lakers Nation. I've got some stuff to do for them today. But when I look at the whole situation with the Lakers and the bigs and Anthony Davis and everything he said yesterday and all of that, both before the game and after the game, he talked about that. I think you want it comes back. People go back to 2020 and they point to 2020 and they go, well, they won a title. And AD even said we won a title with Dwight and JaVale in there. Yeah, but AD started at the 5 against Miami. He did it in the matchup against the Rockets as well. You know, it wasn't like he played. In fact, it was a 60-40 split, the 4 and the 5. And when you go and you look at his minutes in that season. So it's not so much about having a 5 that is going to push AD to the 4 permanently. It's about having the option to play him at either spot, depending on what the situation is. And the option doesn't mean, super expensive. You're going to play him 30 minutes a night, big next to AD. And so that's my only concern, is that you go get a guy who's making $20 million. Well, now you're obligated to play him 25, 30 minutes a night at the 5. Yep. And there's going to be nights where that isn't the correct choice.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. And you're going to, if it's Vooch, we'll stay with that because that's the name of the moment. You then gave up a first-round pick to get him. And you're going, because you're not getting him for seconds. Like, it's just not going to happen. Chicago will just keep him. They'll just keep him and be like, all right, we'll figure it out next summer. Then, if we have to. Like, they're just not going to do that. So, it's somebody threw out, or a few somebody's threw out Capella. That one's a little interesting because the Hawks moved him to the bench.
Yeah,
and
they did.
Seems like a permanent move.
And he's expiring.
Yeah, and it's an expiring salary. That one I don't like, because you don't have to start him. You could bring him in, and you could start him when you play, Denver. You could start him in that game, those games, and kind of move forward with that. But yeah, just it's just not the way. I just think the bigger need is get another perimeter defender in there. But that's like 25 teams. So, whoa.
$50 super chat. Big time. Well, thank you. Said, speaking of players we're not willing to give up on yet, for me, it's DeAndre Ayton. Do you all think he gets moved before the deadline?
Next summer.
Yeah, I mean, his contract, I think, is just kind of big. Like, if you are in the market for DeAndre Ayton, wouldn't you rather go for a Vucevic? Wouldn't you rather go for someone like that?
Yeah, Capella,
that's out there. Yeah, Capella, sure, right? Those guys, rather than go for Ayton. As far as not giving up on DeAndre Ayton, there were motor concerns for DeAndre Ayton. There always have been, but it seems like that's kind of been his undoing. The motor's just not really there for him, and so he's just never become the guy that they were hoping he'd be. He's still relatively young. I mean, it's not impossible for him to improve, but I mean, now we're second stop, and he's still just kind of, he's not bad. He's not bad. Like, but is he a guy you want to pay $36 million, something like that? Probably not. Right?
Yeah, I was so excited when the Suns made that finals run against the Bucks, because it's all coming together for DeAndre Ayton. And I thought that next season, like, he was just going to take off, and then that team, crashed and burned spectacularly. And it's like, all right, it just never happened. And now it's not like, I'm not saying he's not going to still play in the NBA for another 5, 6, 7, 8 years. He may, but he's never going to be a, more than at best an average starting center. Like, they just, he's
on 36 million next year. And then after that, I mean, if he just keeps playing the way that he is, maybe he's like a MLE guy, maybe a little bit above that, something like, he's not a $36 million guy.
Yep. Probably.
Yeah. So, Miguel said Dalton Connect and a first for Kessler, JHS, Cam Wood for Quentin Grimes, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Gary Harris type players. I mean, I don't know how available all those guys are. I mean, maybe
Yeah,
Gary
Grimes and Alexander Walker probably not.
right. Gary Harris
Gary
would be
Harris,
the one that maybe, but anyway, I mean, we talked about it a little bit yesterday with the show, but would you do Kessler or do Connect and a first for Kessler?
No, that's too much.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's close. It is close. What I talked about was your evaluation point as the Lakers front office needs to be when we are playing really important games, meaning playoff games. Can we get to, not this year necessarily, but at any point, can we play Austin Reeves and Dalton Connect together? Can they be on the floor for 15 to 20 minutes at the same time? If your answer is no, then you need to start to think about, all right, then maybe that makes more sense, because otherwise all Dalton Connect will ever be, you can't play those guys together in games that matter. Austin's going to play 30 minutes. He's going to be a 15 to 20 minute a night backup.
Yeah.
And that's not, I mean, that's okay. Like, that's fine. But then I would think about, all right, if I can get a real upgrade for a guy who can be a big part of what I'm trying to do, then I would definitely go that way. I saw
interesting.
something.
Oh, you did?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah,
it was just this one. Whatever happened to Avery Bradley's old. He's old. Avery Bradley, like last time I saw him, looked like Avery Bradley was enjoying post-playing life. I mean, that's,
great.
I mean, Avery Bradley ended up having a heck of a career.
For sure.
All things considered. Weird. That's another one of those weird Celtics Lakers guys.
Yeah. Rick Fox, Avery Bradley, Rajon Rondo. I mean, there's a number of them. All right, let's go here. This
30 teams, so
this is an interesting one. Michael, so why is Westbrook thriving in Denver with Jokic, but then not with the other LA teams? Was it the coaching, the scheme, the freedom of play style allowed with Denver? I mean, I think a lot of it is he's cutting well off of Jokic, and that's creating opportunities for him. And to his credit, he has played very, very well for them. But some of it, I think, is fit. But some of it is, I think, just Russ is playing better because he's playing better. Like, his decision making has been better. Some things are clicking with him there. Some of it is definitely playing off of Jokic. But there were things when he was with LA where we just kept saying he needs to stop doing these things. His shot selection is not good. And that's in addition to he was having trouble finishing at the rim and all of that, which has gotten a bit better when he's cutting off of Jokic. That's helped him there. But I think his decision making has come around a bit too. It's not just, Jokic is magnifying what Russ is doing. I think Russ has just been part of it is he's been playing better. He's been better with his decision making on the floor too.
Yeah, I mean it's all of the above. Like, it's just, I also think I think for whatever reason it has clicked with him that if I want to stay in the NBA, I need to change. Like, and it's easy to say that because, all right, I'll just play as an off-ball guy that Jokic sets up. He's doing more cutting and screening than ever at any point in his career. He's off the ball a lot, but he still is, getting the ball enough. It's just, it's been the perfect fit. And I'm not trying to poke fun at Jimmy Butler and the whole, can you find your joy? I will go all the way back to like his OKC days. This seems the happiest Russell Westbrook has been playing in years. Like, you watch him play, just he's playing with joy, and that's pretty cool this late in his career that he's kind of reinvented himself, because it's really, really, that is the single hardest thing to ask an athlete to do, is reinvent themselves. When Russell Westbrook was an MVP, like, to not be that's why guys retire when they still have stuff left in the tank, because what they have left in the tank is a different version of what they are today, or what they always were, rather. And they can't adjust to what they need to be today. So they just would rather retire. And that's really tough. I think about Carmelo Anthony with that. When
Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard.
When Carmelo finally accepted the bench role with the Trailblazers first, and then ultimately with the Lakers, it extended his career by like 3 or 4 years that he would not have had. If he still insisted on, I need to start and get my 20 shots a night, he was out of the league. He was not going to play anymore. And then it's finally like, all right, I'll reinvent myself. And he got a few extra years, there. So I would, I like credit to guys who do that. But the list of guys who have done it is way shorter than the list of guys who, had just kind of fade away.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, like you said, it's not an easy thing to do. It's always great to see when you see guys that are able to do it. I think the one who did it perhaps the most gracefully was Vince Carter, who was just
Sure.
very upfront about it and he stayed for a long time and just said, "Look, yeah, I'm not the guy I used to be, but I love the game. I love the game. I don't want to be around the game. I don't want to help the young guys and all that kind of stuff." But for a lot of guys, that's a very difficult transition. And you think about it, like these guys have been, I mean, for the time when they were little kids, been the guy on every team they've ever played for. So you're talking about decades of suddenly that's not what you are anymore. It's people just say, "Oh, well, just change your role or whatever." Like it's a bigger thing than you're just making a slight change the way you're playing or whatever. You're changing what you've done for decades now of your life. It's not an easy change to make.
Yeah, gosh, I can't think of who it was. It's one of the guys. Let me look, because it's one of the guys in this year's rookie class who talked about how he's like, I've never not played before. And
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not playing. Oh, it was Rob Dillingham.
Oh.
Was like, I've never not played before. And
Right.
he's like that. I didn't know how to go from I don't play every day. And to your point, I'm gonna guess for Rob Dillingham, since the time he's probably 8 or 9 years old, he's probably been the best player on every team he's ever played for.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kentucky team. There were good players
Sure.
there. That's when it starts to change a little bit, but one of the best even there. And I'm guessing it was like, that's just a huge adjustment. Like it's hard. But now look at Rob Dillingham, especially since he came back from the ankle injury. He's playing great, playing really, really well. So
all right, let's go here. Senpai said, "Is Brooklyn going to hold Cam? Feels like Kuzma last year."
yeah, that's a good comp. Kuzma also was kind of shutting things down. Like he didn't want to get traded last year, which now it's funny. He's like, we've won 6 games and it's the end
okay,
of
you can trade
January.
me now.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. But yeah, I mean, it is starting to feel a little bit like that.
Yeah, I mean, Kuzma had there was that opportunity to go to Dallas before the PJ Washington trade.
Yeah.
And instead, Kuzma said, "No, I don't want to go." But as far as Cam goes, I think we are starting to see teams like all we've heard is the asking price is high, the asking price is high, the asking price is high. Now you've got teams that are pushing back and going, "Yeah, the asking price is high, so we're not as interested anymore." Right. So I don't know what's going to happen, but the Nets can convincingly say we don't have to move him this year, and they don't. They're losing enough games as is. That said, I think if the right deal is there, they'll take it. But this is also the time in terms of the NBA trade season calendar, this is the time for, no, we're not as interested in that guy. And for the selling team to be like, well, we're not getting the offer that we want right now. And, and kind of the back and forth. And then sometime before the 6th, suddenly they go, hey, we'll add this. Okay, we'll take a little bit less. Boom, done deal. And off you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everybody gets more reasonable in about a week from now. So,
yeah.
I would Cam Johnson just file away the teams that have been linked to him, because these things have a real good track record of coming back around. And if it's not now, think about in this summertime, it may swing back around, that it comes back around to those teams.
All right, let's go here. If the 76ers didn't go for the big swing in George and went with solid pieces, they would be involved in Butler talks. Morey is the problem. Bob Myers is rumored to replace him. Thoughts? I haven't seen any rumors about Bob Myers. I'm sure Sixers fans are talking.
Yeah, I've talking
about it. Sixers fans talking about it. Just like every fan of every team that that is mad at their front office will say. I mean, Lakers fans continue talking about Bob Myers, right? That's going to be the go-to. But the Sixers would be involved in the Butler talks. I mean, maybe they would be. Yeah. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. But if they didn't go for the big swing in George and went with solid pieces, would they still be struggling? I mean, Embiid still wouldn't be playing, right? So they might still not be very good.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, then you're talking about Tyrese Maxey, occasionally Paul George, and a bunch of role players. Like it's kind of, or not, you're just thought that's what you get now. You'd be talking about Tyrese Maxey and a whole bunch of role players. So I don't know that it's all that different, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? And there was a world where the Sixers could have done short-term overpays for a handful of guys in free agency. But I mean, that's rewinding the whole thing and going back and all that. So yeah, it hasn't worked. It is what it is. They took their shot, and I mean, I don't. If it gets fully bottomed out and they are awful, I kind of wonder if they'd make a change in the front office, and say like, hey, wait, we're not gonna let you go forward from here with this and make these decisions. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's just a weird spot.
They should just bring back Hinkie.
Can you imagine?
Oh, that'd be funny.
They could bring him back for the rest of the season, maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
Pretty good again. Good.
He could tank. This is, I think, an interesting question here. Do teams only deal with specific teams in trades? And there is some measure of that. Like you do see teams tend to go back. I wrote about
it a couple of years ago for Spot Track.
Right. Teams go back and they trade with the same teams. Now, what I think what we have to be careful with is we get there's only 29 other teams in the league. Correct. So most teams, while they have their preferred trading partners, this team simply won't trade with that team. Are teams reluctant to trade with teams, say, in their division? Yeah, that could certainly be a thing. Are there teams that your fans will react negatively towards a trade with? Sure, right? I fully understand that. But in general, while there are teams that you prefer to go trade with, there are teams that you have a good working relationship with, you're not going to have very many teams that simply say, no, we flat out won't trade with team X or whatever if the deal is right.
Yeah, almost. Let me rephrase.
It's like never.
There's zero. Nobody is in this. All right, things got really ugly between Portland and Miami.
Sure.
For a little bit there. They're fine now. They if there's a trade that makes sense for both sides, they do it. You can't keep the job if you start eliminating, like you said, you only have 29 other partners to trade with. You start eliminating too many of them, and then all of a sudden it all falls apart. So I think what happens with this becomes you have more common trade partners, and part of that is you just have faith and trust that we're talking to trade with this group, it's not going to get out. It's not going to be negotiated in public. They're not going to turn around and I almost said Woj because I'm still in that mindset. They're not going to turn around and give it to Shams just because they know then it'll get reported that we talked and then it's like now we have to address it and those kind of things. Everybody has those partners that they just believe in a little bit more than some of the others, or just have more faith in that'll work. Quietly. Yeah, Miguel brings up a great point. The Knicks sued Toronto and still made a trade with them. Right. That. Now that was a little bit of a different thing there because that was more ownership, pushing that. But yeah, it's it's still a great point. I want to address this one. Can the Pacers afford Miles Turner? As it stands today, one, I don't know who's offering $35 million a year because it's not.
Sure.
I don't think Brooklyn or Washington, and I don't think that's where that'll go. Can they afford him? It's tough just to re-sign him on a reasonable number because they are just a nudge below the tax line right now. They don't have that kind of flexibility moving forward because they've extended guys. Andrew Nembhard jumps from $2 million to $18 million next year, so those are big. But we'll see. My guess is. If you see the Pacers make a move that seems a little like, why did they do that? I think it might be more about future flexibility to free up room under the tax to re-sign Miles Turner than it is anything they're trying to do today.
All right, let's go here with Senpai. Said crazy trade. Lakers get Nurkic, Josh Green, and Tyus Jones. For Phoenix gets Rui. Charlotte gets Gabe and JHS, and one of those bad firsts from Phoenix. That's interesting.
I don't like Nurkic for the Lakers.
Yeah, I don't.
That's the issue there.
That's just some interesting pieces that I haven't seen and thrown into trades. But yeah, Nurkic next to AD. I mean, and you're still paying him next year for $19 million. I don't know about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one's a little. That part breaks down a little bit there.
And Tyus Jones, you still are having defensive issues next to Austin Reeves. And then does Phoenix want to give up that stuff to maybe do they think they're helping the Lakers? There's that kind of situation. Then Rui going there.
Couple
Charlotte
people
getting
saying Suns can't aggregate. Yeah, that's absolutely true, but they wouldn't be. He even called
right.
it
They
out.
wouldn't be
Tyus Jones would be absorbed through the minimum exception because he's on a minimum deal, so they don't
right.
need to aggravate. So it's really just Nurkic is the
Yeah.
matching salary that goes up there.
All right. Let's go here. J1 said Lakers removed 27 protection for Utah 25 first, second worst. I don't think the Utah Jazz would give up a full first, even if it's a late first, just to remove the top 4 protection.
Yeah, that's a trade you make when you're in that year. If it looks like the Lakers are going to be bad, then then it might be like, okay, let's start talking at that point.
Right.
And at that point, the Lakers are like, no, let's not talk about that.
no, we want that. We want that protection. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What are you giving us? Because it needs to be really good,
right,
for us to do that.
The impact of LeBron moving down to the 3 is downplayed by many. Yeah.
Not this guy.
Yeah. How do you feel about Rui, Gabe, JHS, Wood, 2 firsts? When you start stacking up a lot of salaries like that, you know something's coming here. Vucevic, Kobe White, Torrey Craig, or Rui, Gabe, and a pick for Vucevic and Ayo Dosunmu. Well, I mean, what do you, just in general, where do you think Chicago is at with their guards?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they're open to listening on them. So if that's going to be the direction they go, then, I mean, that first one, yeah, I'd be all over that. Like, that's pretty good. You know, I really like Kobe White, and I think Kobe White's really good. I think you could probably play Kobe White and Austin Reeves together in the backcourt too. And have a really, kind of dynamic backcourt there. So I like that. I'd like it for the Bulls too. Give me those 2 first round picks that are that far out. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Everybody make sure you do like this live show. By the way, we haven't mentioned it. Get a like spike in there. Get this out to as many people as we can. We'll do a couple more minutes here. Johnny said, can you guys explain what teams are eligible to sign buyout players? So in theory, I mean, if anybody is making above the MLE, you just can't, you can't sign with a tier 1 or above apron team.
Yep.
And that's
those teams today are the Celtics, Nuggets, Lakers, Heat, Bucks, Timberwolves, Knicks, Suns, and 76ers. So if anybody makes above, it's like 12.8 million, call it 13 million just to round it off. Yeah. If a guy makes above that, those teams are prohibited from signing them as a buyout player. But if it's like a guy made 6 million and got bought out, yeah, they can go sign that guy.
Yeah. What do you thoughts on Detroit taking a chance on BI? I like it on the basketball court. If it's Detroit is trading for him to then pay him $50 million a year, I don't like that so much.
Yeah, you can't give him that much. But if it was like, all right, you can get him for 30 to 35, and you gave up, I'm just going to say Tim Hardaway Jr. in your cap space. It doesn't quite get you there, but get you really close. Sure, I'm all about it. Great.
But if it's 30 to 35, the Pelicans would just go, cool, here you go, BI.
Would they?
Well, I mean, the rumor is that they'll go up to 40, and he doesn't want that.
I mean,
do you think that's not true?
Like I mean, I think that's probably in the range, right? Like, and it's tough. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're really kind of messy.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, I know Keith could use a little bit of rest. I've got a bunch of things to get going on here. We appreciate all of you for joining us here for Front Office Friday. You guys know this time of year, anything happens over the weekend, we'll jump on, we'll do something, we'll get it covered. But thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate all of you. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Keith, as always, this was a blast. And I have a feeling that today is not done. There's going to be more stuff coming out later today. So it's going to be a busy day.
We're 100% in range now. We're 2 weeks from the deadline. Sometimes teams want to make a deal now because that gives you a whole extra couple weeks to incorporate the player. Because what gets forgotten is if you wait till deadline day, it's almost always the guy may miss a game or two before he's ready to come. Then you're like another week and you're at the All-Star break. So you're really talking the end of February by the time you're really incorporating that guy. And at that point, end of February to the postseason, it's a sprint. It is a full-scale sprint for teams. So So we're in range. We're in range on something happening, there. So we'll see. I'm excited. I say this every time. I hope we have a reason to go live.
That's right.
Later this weekend.
That's right. All right, everybody. Thank you guys for joining the show. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.